welcome to Inkquiring Minds. My name is Doug and I'm back with another Pen Resurrection Sunday video. This seems to be a trend. Last week I resurrected this tiny little ebonite lever fill pen, which I guessed was made around 1920. Today's resurrection is just a bit larger, and this one is from 1932 to 1934. It's a Sheaffer Balance 325 Petite in blue celluloid, and I picked it up at a local antique store just a couple of weeks ago. Before 1929, most fountain pens were made of ebonite or black hard rubber BHR, like this one. Most were black, tube-shaped, with flat top and bottom finials. Then in 1929, Sheaffer revolutionized the fountain pen industry by creating the Sheaffer Balance, a torpedo-shaped fountain pen made from plastic, specifically celluloid plastic. Pens were now streamlined and came in a myriad of exciting colors other than black. And this is probably the most copied pen shape in pen history. Sheaffer made the Balance from 1929 until the late 1940s. Although Sheaffer didn't date stamp their pens, you can get a rough idea of when this pen was made by the shape of the clip and the color of the celluloid. Based on the shape of the clip, this one's called the short round ball humped clip. We could just call it short round.
Holy smoke!
Short round. Step on it.
And the blue celluloid color, I can estimate this pen was made between 1932 and 1934. However, this one was made in Toronto, Canada. All bets are off because Canadian fountain pen plants seem to do their own thing at Sheaffer, Parker, and Waterman plants in Canada, but most likely 1932 to 1934. So let's triage this pen and see what it needs to come back to the land of the living. You can see this is a tiny pen, 4 1/8 inches long, and the 325 on the nib refers to a specific model of Sheaffer Balance, the 325, with the 325 designation indicating the price of the original pen at $3.25 and the 25 representing the 25-year guarantee. This is a Sheaffer Balance without the white dot, either on the clip or on the top of the pen, which used to mean the lifetime warranty from Sheaffer. So if it didn't have the white dot and it had the 25 on it, it was a 25-year warranty. The Sheaffer Balance was made in 6 sizes, from this Petite model at 4 1/8 inches to the oversize at 5 5/8 inches long, capped. So let's take a look at this pen. There are a lot of scratches all over it. The first thing you notice is that the blue here on the cap doesn't match the blue here on the barrel. And this is pretty typical of a lot of celluloid pens from the 30s, 40s, 50s. From years and years of having that black latex sac inside the barrel, it discolored the celluloid from the inside out. And there's nothing to be done about that. Let's take a look at the clip. The clip has a lot of wear on it. These were gold filled, and so that should polish up really nicely. The problem is that these clips were basically inset into the celluloid, so you can't remove them. So I'll have to mask off the cap and polish that clip. The gold cap ring isn't slipping around, so that means that celluloid hasn't shrunk quite as much as it could have shrunk. And the barrel has its imprint. Let's see whether we can see it here. There we are, W.A. Sheaffer Pen Co. of Canada, limited in brackets, Toronto, Ontario, and then it says PAT, and the patent number is worn off. And then it says, this is very interesting, I have no idea what this means. My guess is that this means this is the patents that are applied, because it says December 10, 12 to January 27, and then dash October 20th, dash November 24th, and then some letter I can't see right there. So I'm guessing that this is the patent number and when the patents were applied, December 10th, 1912. That's my guess anyway. If anybody knows what those imprints from the Canadian plant meant, please let me know in the comments below. So we unscrew the cap. There are no splits in that celluloid on the cap. So the cap is in actually really good shape, with some bite marks and things that can be sanded out. So I'll endeavor to do that. The cap seal seems to be in place. And there's our nib. Let's check out the size of this nib by measuring it at the base of the feed. There. and it's 5.1 millimeters, which means it's a number 5 size. Nib, the heart-shaped breather hole, it says Sheaffer's 3-25, made in Canada. I can't see anything below that, but that's 14 karat gold right there. And then the ebonite feed. This is like, they used to call these Christmas tree type feeds. That's in good shape as well. No chips. Let's look at the section. There are a couple of gouges here in the section that will need to be sanded out, and a couple of abrasions on the tiny section as well. The barrel is discolored, as I said, and there is the lever for the lever filler, and it feels like there's a sack in there. So let's see whether we can get this off. Some gripper material out, give it a twist. There we go. And there's an intact latex sack with some of the talc still on it. So this might actually fill up, but that feels kind of flimsy to me. And so I'm not sure, because it doesn't expand very well. I think I'm just going to replace that latex sack. And besides, I want to get that feed and nib out so I can polish up that nib and polish up the feed, get the nicks and abrasions out of that tiny section. And then we take a look at the lever on the inside of the barrel, and we can see that it works really nicely. There is some corrosion on that pressure bar, but it might just need a little bit of cleaning. So I'm going to put these things in the ultrasonic bath of Pen Flush, which is 9 parts distilled water and 1 part ammonia, for just a couple of minutes. I don't let these things sit in Pen Flush overnight. Ebonite, like on that section and feed, don't really like exposure to water. So we'll put it in the Pen Flush ultrasonic bath for a bit and get it all cleaned up, and then I'll use my inspection camera to take a look inside that barrel at how that pressure bar is faring in there. See whether it needs replacing. It feels rather stout and workable, so I don't think it needs replacing. So first thing, before the bath of Pen Flush, I'm just going to take this sack off of here because it doesn't need to go in the bath. I'm just going to cut it a little bit here. This latex has been shellacked on to the stem of this section. There we go. I'm going to peel that off of there and get any extraneous shellac onto that stem. There's the back of the feed, and we'll tap that out once we've got it out of the bath. Take a look at that nib close up. You can see it needs a good amount of polishing, but that's gold, and you'll be amazed at how it comes up, shining and like new. Okay, now got the barrel out of the bath. Let's take my inspection camera and go in the barrel and see what the lever looks like. So it looks like that lever is in really good shape, so we'll leave that alone, and we'll try to polish up some of these gouges that we have in the barrel here and there, bite marks and so forth. The clip looks a little brighter since the bath, but I'm going to put masking tape around the clip here so I can put it on my buffer. So I'll take a good look at that Sheaffer clip and how banged up it is after 90 plus years, and we'll see how it comes up after buffing. But let's get after this nib and get it out of that section by knocking it out with our knockout block. You find the right hole that accommodates the nib but not the section, and find the right knockout punch. That's really flush. I can't even see the edges of it. I think that should work. I'm going to tap it lightly to begin with. Pounded it a little bit so I can see where the edges are to make sure that that rod fits inside it. And there's the nib, and there's the feed. So this nib has been damaged. It looks like it's been bent back and bent back into shape again down here on the shaft. That shouldn't really affect the nib at all in how it writes, because the tines themselves look perfect. But let's put this very old, very scratched up Sheaffer 1934 nib on the buffer wheel and see how it comes up under polishing. So there we have it, all polished up like brand new. Look at that, 91 years old. I hope I look that good when I'm 91. We'll see in a couple of years. Now I'm going to masking tape this cap off and go at that clip, and we'll see how it looks. And there it is. There are a couple of corrosion marks and a couple of deeper scratches, but so there's one corrosion mark right there and one on the ball, but it's looking pretty good, shiny. So now we'll do the reverse and polish up the cap. But first I'm going to polish up the feed with some rubbing compound, get that all nice and shiny, just the visible part. And I'm going to take some 400 grit sandpaper and just polish out those couple of dings on the edge of that section to try to polish out marks on the section, and then we'll give it some micro mesh and polish to clean it up. There we go. Now I've reshaped that section slightly so it's a little bit of a softer edge on there, but those gouges are gone. So now we just need to polish that up with some micro mesh and some polishing compound. I'll do that when I get to the barrel and the cap. And there's the ebonite feed all polished up like brand new. Okay, I put the section back in the barrel, and we're going to go at this barrel with some 400 grit flexible sandpaper to get out most of the deeper gouges and bite marks, like those right there. And once we've got that out, we'll go through the micro mesh from 1500 grit down to 12,000 grit and finish off with some polishing compound. And here is the barrel all polished up, looking wonderful. The section has been reshaped and those gouges are gone. And here's the cap with the first pass of 400 grit to get rid of all the teeth marks, and we'll go at that with the rest of the micro mesh. And we're going to take our polished up nib and feed and put them back in the section, at least attempt to do it. I've sanded the back side of the feed so that it's got some ebonite dust, acts like a lubricant. We're going to put the nib back on the feed, grab it with some gripper material, and find the spot where this feed has lived in this pen for many years. Yeah, it needs to be sanded down a little bit more to fit. And there we go, I got it back in. A little bit to spare, so it's not all the way. That should work fine. And I'm going to put this back in the barrel, and we're going to do a dip test of this nib to see how it writes. And let's say this is a 1934 Sheaffer Balance 325 Petite. And I'd say this is a medium 14 karat gold nib. It's nicely wet and it has a lot of feedback, almost a scratch. I've looked at the nib and it's nicely aligned, no issues there, but it just needs a bit of a polish. So now we'll take that section out. The section's all nice and clean and ready for a new sack. Get out a sack, some talc, and my sack spreader, and my shellacker pen from the Inky Nib. And we'll do a test fit on this first before we trim. There we go. That should fit nicely. Now let's put this into the barrel so it's just about that second thread. Pinch it there and then pinch it there. Isn't rocket science. Let's snip it off at that point. Give it another test. Yep, that seems like it's the right length. Just where it starts to narrow, right there. Perfect. So I'll take that back off again, get out some talc, and dredge our sack in powder so that we can allow our sack to slide inside the barrel. Send the kids out of the room for this bit, and we paint some shellac right on that stem. Get the old sack spreader out again and do it for real. There we go. Do a little bit of a twist. Make sure it's seated properly. And then paint a little extra all around that seam to prevent any leakage. We'll set that aside and let it dry overnight. And here's the cap all polished up. And it came up very nicely. And there's still a few marks that are close to the clip that are difficult to get, like that one there. But while I was polishing, I noticed that it had been previously repaired. There's a crack right there that's been repaired with shellac, and one right there. And it blends in with this pattern so nicely that you hardly even notice it. So, stabilized crack, polished clip, polished barrel. It's looking pretty good for 91 years. And the shellac has dried, so we're going to install the section. It's actually fitting very nicely, and that little bit of shellac on the outside will keep it stable. I might just add a little heat to that because it's sticky. There we go. I'm going to run a little polish around that as well. And there we go. All ready for some ink. Okay, so we'll fill this up with a little bit of ink. Some Watermans. It's a very tiny pen, so getting the pen down into the ink and operating the lever is a tricky thing. I'll do it a couple of times. Here, bubbles. And we'll post this pen. There we go. Let it flow a little bit. And I'm going to polish out some of that feedback. There we go. It's feeling pretty good. And I'll come back with my thoughts on this pen resurrection. So what are my thoughts on this resurrection? Well, I'm really pleased about this one. Just finding it in the first place was a really fun experience. I go to one of my favorite antique shops regularly, and there's a couple of booths that tend to have fountain pens now and then. There was this one booth where I've seen a lot of junk over the last couple of years. The odd fountain pen looks interesting, but they're mostly Canadian-made steel nib that are either bent or corroded. So when I saw this one with that Sheaffer clip, I need the key for that booth. Went in and took a look at it. The first thing, of course, you take the cap off and you say, okay, is the nib missing? Is the nib steel? Is the nib twisted beyond recognition? But this one looked like it was in really, really good shape. Of course, it banged up after many, many years. So I eagerly paid the amount that the vendor had asked for this pen and examined it when I came home, and I was really excited when I examined the pen. These are not rare, but they're relatively rare. You can find them on eBay now and then. This pen won't appeal to everyone because it's so tiny. Let's post it and see what it looks like in relation to a normal size pen. There's a Pilot Metropolitan. You can see posted how much smaller this Sheaffer is. So if you've got big mitts, this pen might not be for you. But in my medium-sized hand, it's a little bit small, but it writes beautifully now. And I'm really thrilled about how it polished up, especially how that nib polished up to looking like it was brand new. I didn't have to do much to the nib, just polished it with some 8000 and then 12,000 grit micromesh to polish out some of the feedback. The nib was already in excellent shape. It looked like it had been previously repaired. There was a latex sac inside the barrel. It looked like it wouldn't hold much ink anyway because it was kind of flaccid inside there. So a new sac gives this pen a new life. And hopefully one of you might like to own this pen. I wouldn't be able to write with this for any length because it is so small. But those of you with smaller hands might like this blue celluloid pen from 1934. It fits in a purse beautifully, fits in a small hand beautifully, and is a lovely piece of vintage memorabilia that is functional. So I've decided to sell this pen for $125 US. If you're interested in purchasing this pen, send me an email at inkquiringminds@gmail.com, and I'll give you instructions on how to pay my PayPal. And shipping to most places in the contiguous North America are around $10 US. If you're interested, send me an email and give me your address, and I'll give you a shipping quote. And there you have it, another dead pen back to life. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to get instant notifications whenever a new video is posted. And you can join as a member of my channel for only 99 cents a month, and I guarantee I'll answer your comments in the comment section, and you'll get cool emojis, badges, sneak peek unboxing videos, as well as instant access to my videos the moment I post them. And that just leaves it for me to say, thank you for watching. And that's all she wrote.
I made this.